Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi guys, we are from grade 1. So today we will present about material for teaching grammar. Okay, before we go to the explanation, let me introduce my team. So we have 5 members. The first member is Keke, Novia, Yuliana. The second member is Irmanda Ayu Resta. The third member is Dwi Yulianti Irham. The fourth member is me, Eksanti, Oktavia, Putri. And the last member is Fifi Harmawati. Okay, so we go to the explanation. So the first material will be presented by Irmanda. So Irmanda, time is yours.
So I am Irmanda Ayu Resta and I want to explain about identifying materials for teaching grammar. Grammar is central to the teaching and learning of languages. It's also one of the more difficult aspects of language to teach well. The teacher usually teach grammar by explaining the forms and rules, then drilling students on some exercises. Or a teacher can use the activities in searching problem solving for some problems in discussion with other students. And then there are some things that we have to know for teaching grammar. The first is the importance and goals of teaching grammar. It's important because if the students well know about grammar in English, they will have good communication in English too. Why it will make them have good communication in English? Because in teaching grammar, teacher clearly expressed that in a communication way, such as introducing grammar point through examples and activities which can help students feel a little safer and also increase students' motivation by learning grammar. And then the goal of grammar is to enable students to carry out their communication purpose. First, students need overt instruction that connects grammar points with larger communication contexts. The goal from overt instruction is to facilitate students' understanding by providing the accurate and appropriate examples that related to its materials. The second goal, students need to master those are relevant to the immediate communication task. Therefore, students need to complete their teaching learning grammar forms and structure in relation to meaning and use a specific problem for the specific communication tasks. The second thing that we have to know in teaching grammar is classroom activities. The first thing is teaching and learning process of grammar by using group work or pair work. So that was designed to improving students' communication in the classroom. Because in teaching, we had to make the class more lively. So group discussion is one of the method that gives students opportunity to explore problem themselves, especially in grammar problems. Next, in the classroom activities, using textbook grammar activities that usually provide these 3 types of exercises. The first is mechanical drills, the second is meaningful drills, and then the third is communicative drills. Mechanical drills means that each item on the exercise has only one correct response, and the students can complete the exercise without attending to the meaning of the item. And then meaningful drills means that each item on the exercise has only one correct response, but students must attending to the meaning to complete the exercise. The last one is communicative drills. Communicative drills means that the student test and develop their ability to use language to convey ideas and information. Next, we have assessing grammar proficiency by using mechanical test and authentic assessment. Mechanical test is usually does to serve one purpose, which is motivate students to memorize, because the test only about memory capacity and not language ability. So they are best used as quizzes and relatively given little weight in an evaluating student performance and progress. And then authentic assessment is to provide an evaluation that must reflect the real life uses of grammar in context. This means that the activity must have a purpose other than assessment by completing some tasks. The next thing that we have to know in teaching grammar is quality and quantity of error correction. Error correction was one of processes to create students in mastering materials. So error or mistakes in communicating in English is tolerated. In responding to student communication, teachers need to be careful because they they cannot to focus only on error correction to the detriment of communication and students' confidence building. So if the students make a mistake in a grammar learning process, as a teacher we can let them know and probably can make it to the correct one, but we have to do it in a good way without underestimate the students' confidence, and in order the students always want to learn more and more about the materials. Then the role of teacher in classroom. In teaching grammar instruction, teacher's role is to act as motivator in the teaching learning process. Why teacher act as motivator? Because there are little of students that sometimes don't have their own goals in learning the material, so we have to motivate by remind them to the importance of this course for their future and training students to take their responsibility and self-discipline to develop their activities in learning grammar. The next thing that we have to know in teaching grammar is the role and contribution of students in the learning process. In English, especially for learning grammar, between tasks and activities must be balanced. So the students should not only mastering the theory but also practicing the theory. They can practice it with friends in their daily activities, because if students mastered English grammar, they will probably have good knowledge. But if the students are having lack of practice, of course, they will still getting difficulty in communicating, especially communicate in English and in a good grammar. That's why the theory and practice the student have should be balanced. It's enough for my explanation. We continue to the next presenters.
Okay everyone, I will continue the previous material about principles for grammar instructions. For this video, I will explain about use a variety of teaching approaches, provide opportunities for guiding not teaching, provide opportunities for meaningful communicate practice, and provide opportunities for students to produce stated output. It's very important for us as teachers to use a variety of teaching approaches. You can't force your student to follow what you want in teaching and learning, because every student have different styles in learning. Some students like explanations and uncomfortable when they don't have a clear understanding of something. Or, in these situations, we can say deductive. And other students more tolerant of ambiguity and don't feel the need of detailed explanations, or we can say inductive. And teaching approaches for grammar needs multiple exposure and practice. This repeated exposure needs to be engaging and meaningful. Language practice within its context of use versus force into an artificial context for the sake of practice. In a variety of teaching approaches, we can use fun charts. There are two ways in fun with chart: become an expert and grammar scavenger. For become an expert, you can follow these steps. First, make a copy of the grammar chart you are teaching or reviewing. Then, cut the chart into sections, for example, the rules and examples. Next, as students come into class, hand them a piece of the chart. When the class begins, have students find their chart partner, and they are now the experts on that portions of the chart. And for grammar scavenger, instead of going through example from a chart, give students the rule sides of the chart, and students look for example in their readings, textbooks, or in their writing. This helps to reinforce the idea that grammar is not an isolated skill, but that is central to language use. Next, principle for grammar instruction is provide opportunities for guiding noticing. The purpose of noticing is precise learning. Typical of noticing is font enhancement. Guided noticing is doing something with the enchanted text. Guided noticing that take place inside or outside the classroom. In teaching, you can make a guided noticing questions. For example, is notice. Find the sentence in the article, then complete with a or n. But if not words goes, the blank write X. This is an example for guided noticing questions, and with follow the notice, the student can answer the question. Okay, next, students are asked to observe and notice target forms in the real world and document the use of particular grammatical features they are studying. For example, look at the picture. There are many activities that students can checklist in their daily activities. Okay, next is in principles for grammar instructions. There is opportunities for meaningful communicative practice. There are three types of practice. First, mechanical practice is controlled practice activity. Students can often do this without understanding the language. The primary focus is on form, repetitions drills, and substitutions drills. The second meaningful practice is language control is still provided, but students need to make meaningful choice to carry out the task. Focus on both form and meaning, or a model letter with particular grammatical features highlighted, and students write a letter. And then, communicative practice is language within a real communicative context, or real informative is exchange, and the language is not totally predictable. Or students write letters to future students with tips for success based on their recent class experience. Okay, for the last, my material is next is provide opportunities for stretched output or tasks that require the learner to use new and more complex grammar and require the use of certain target language from. There are tasks that stretch the learner's language knowledge, requiring a restructuring of that knowledge. Okay, for the next material will be presented by my friends.
Okay, the next material presented by me. My name is Fifi Harmawati. Okay, Mike links to vocabulary and grammar. The first, intimate link between vocabulary and grammar. The second, takes chunks of the language. The last, takes preposition that go together with the adjectives or verbs. Okay, these are the most common adjectives used with the preposition. Adjectives were full preposition of. Many people are not aware of the cost of things for the forms units are the full the phrase vocal phrases. Adjectives derive spread a preposition from. The tomato from the French garden were different from supermarket tomato. Restaurant cafe spread from the meat and the poultry. Adjectives do similar. Preposition to. His food fries to yours are the two bit wetter. The price of the local fruits is the sometimes similar to the practice of the important fruits. Adjectives familiar wrong. Preposition with. Are you familiar with is the type the mango doing? There's something wrong with the peppers they hard at the dry. And then adjective good surprise preposition at. Are you good at March? Can you identify the phrases? I was the surprise at the amount of the food we ate. Adjectives insert preposition in. I am not interested in the quality food. I just want to eat. And then adjectives are referenceable. Good preposition for. Who is the referenceable for the quality in the food or student criteria? The cooking at home is good for you. The last adjectives worried, excited, preposition about. I'm worried about all the chemical that used to trade for. We are excited about the new restaurant in town. Okay, the next more the first key the preposition. A. Fill in the blanks with the either and or of. Check your answer and classmate. The first, the filer to the some my restaurant F your final grades. The 2-5, the uncused absences will return to filer in the class. The third, you should become better writers and resolve this the course. The fourth, the rest of this exercise will be carefully organized. Easy. The 5, exclusive absences may result of failing grade. The B, look at the sentence and answer to the question below. The first, what part of the speech or noun or verb is the result when used within? The two, what the part of the speech or noun or verb is the result when used with of? Okay. Use student errors to improve interaction. The part use student error as the score of the interaction. The next, have student actually enter in error correction. Okay. Detective insert in the classroom. The first, have a chance of the language on the board yesterday. I could finish as my homework. Tom is the study. The second, student come in the find on the fix the error. The next, detective outside the classroom. The first, student bring in the chemical. The second tips. The third, the door is the break. The last, add the chemical to the charged wall. Okay, integrate grammar with the 4 skill. Okay, the first, grammar is not and itself but means to and. The second, it is essential that grammar is the talk and the practice across all the skill in the manner that moves from part the word from sentence to enter the text. The third, reading and writing. Student can identify the phrases that are used to signal opinion is first text or original grammatical reason are used to contact idea. Grammar, listening and the speaking. The first, use a list of the forms and have the student mark the form that occurred in the text. The second, guess the context. Students are required to use key language from the text or specifically models to say where the conversation took the place or who is interacting. Student role play text making a request and figuring out. The rectorship expellation good for business and the practice. Okay, the next use internet and technology resources. Use technology to the first profit a real audience for student writing or the speaking text. The second profit education the practice. Encourage learner autonomy. Next, warming up, central to the execution and effective use of the grammar is the relation of the how grammatical choice work together in the correct text that reflect context of use and complete the reference the function. The second grammar interaction should the form learns words to the nature of the text and the function of the grammar within them and exploit the grammatical relations learns make use of when they engage in the speaking and writing text. The 12 purpose parts and ideas suggest why the teaching grammar to move by interest in sentence, level grammar, and interpretive, a focus of grammar as an intentional communicative resource. Principles for grammar interaction. The first, identity, the grammarian learns need. The second, text and awareness of the nature of the text. The third, the fourth, awareness of difference between speaking and writing. The fourth, use calculator to explore the text. The fifth, use a variety of the teaching approach. The sixth, the private opportunities for the guided nothings. The seventh, profit opportunities for mining communicative practice. The eighth, the purpose persons for the student to the produce straight outward. The ninth, makes link between grammar and the vocabulary. The ninth, use student errors to improve interaction. Next, integrate grammar with the for the scale. The last, use internet and technology relationships.
Okay, so I will explain about teaching grammar strategies for learning grammar. So language teachers and language learners are often frustrated by the disconnect between knowing the rules of grammar and being able to apply those rules automatically in listening, speaking, reading, and also writing. So this disconnect reflects a separation between declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge. So for example, declarative knowledge is what you have read and understand the instruction for programming the DVD player. And then for example, in procedural knowledge is what you demonstrate when you program the DVD player. So procedural knowledge does not translate automatically into declarative knowledge. Many native speakers can use their language clearly and correctly without being able to state the rules of its grammar. So likewise, declarative knowledge does not translate automatically into procedural knowledge. So students may be able to state a grammar rule, but consciously fail to apply the rule when speaking or writing. So to address the declarative knowledge or procedural knowledge separation, teachers and students can apply several strategies such as relate knowledge needs to learning goals, apply higher order thinking skills, provide plentiful appropriate language input, use predicting skills, and limit expectation for drills. Okay, I will explain about approaches for teaching grammar. So we have deductive approach and inductive approach. So a deductive approach is when the rule is presented and the language is produced based on the rule. So it means that the teacher gives the rule. And then an inductive approach is when the rule is inferred through some form of guided discovery. It means that the teacher gives the students a means to discover the rule for themselves. So in other words, the former is more teacher-centered and the latter more learner-centered. Both approaches have their advantages and disadvantages. So, the deductive approach is undoubtedly time-saving and allows more time for practicing the language items, thus making it an effective approach with lower-level students. Meanwhile, for the inductive approach, on the other hand, is often more beneficial to students who already have a base in the language, as it encourages them to work things out for themselves based on their existing knowledge. Okay, so presentation, practice, and production, PPP. So a deductive approach often fits into a lesson structure known as PPP, presentation, practice, and production. So the teacher presents the target language and then gives students the opportunity to practice it through very controlled activities. So the final stage of the lesson gives the students the opportunity to practice the target language in free activity which bring in other language elements. So in a 60 minutes lesson, each stage would last approximately 20 minutes. This model works well as it can be used for most isolated grammatical items. So it also allows the teacher to time each stage of the lesson fairly accurately and to anticipate and be prepared for the problems students may encounter. So it is less workable at higher levels when students need to compare and contrast several grammatical items at the same time, and when their linguistic abilities are far less uniform. Okay, so next is presentation. So in this stage, the teacher presents the new language in a meaningful context. So we can build up stories on the board using realia or flashcards and miming are fun ways to present the language. So for example, when we're presenting the second conditional, so we can draw a picture of ourselves with thought bubbles, like of lots of money, a sport car, a big house, and a world map. So we can ask our students what we are thinking about, and then introduce the target language. For example, if I had a lot of money, I would buy a sports car and a big house. So we practice and drill the sentence orally before writing it on the board. Positive, negative, question, and short answer. And then we focus on form by asking the students questions. For example, what do we use after if? And on meaning by asking the students question to check that they have understood the concept. For example, do I have lots of money? And they will say no. What am I doing? They said imagining. So when we are satisfied that our students understand the form and the meaning, so we move on to the practice stage of the lesson. So during this stage of the lesson, it is important to correct phonological and grammatical mistakes. Okay, so next is practice. So there are numerous activities which can be used for this stage, including gap filling exercises, substitution drills, sentence transformation, split sentences, picture dictations, class questionnaires, reordering sentences, and matching sentences to pictures. So it is important that the activities are fairly controlled at this stage, as students have only just met the new language. And then many students' books and workbooks have exercises and activities which can be used at this stage. So when we're teaching, for example, the second conditional, we would use split sentences as a controlled practice activity. So we give students lots of sentence, halves and in pairs. They try and match the beginnings and ends of the sentences. So for example, if I won the lottery, blah blah blah, I travel around the world. And then we would then do a communication follow-up game like Pulmonism or Snap using the same sentence halves. Okay, next is about production. Again, there are numerous activities for the stage, and what you choose will depend on the language you are teaching and on the level of your students. However, information gaps, role plays, interviews, simulations, find someone who, spot the differences between two pictures, picture cues, problem solving, personalization activities, and board games are all meaningful activities which give students the opportunity to practice the language more freely. So when teaching, for example, the second conditional, we would try to personalize the lessons at this stage by giving students a list of question prompts to ask others in the class. For example, do/if/win the lottery. Although the questions are controlled, the students are given the opportunity to answer more spontaneously using other language items, and thus the activity becomes much less predictable. So, it is important to monitor and make a note of any error so that you can build in class feedback and error analysis at the end of the lesson. Alright guys, so this is the end of my team presentation. So if you guys have a question, please drop the question on comment column in our learning. So thank you for watching this video. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.